Good morning, Kumarji.
Namaste everyone. We'll start with 3 ohms. Please take a deep breath. Take it. Om. Om. Prabhatam, Namaste, Namo Namaha. So let's start with the chanting of the sutras. Kranti, please go ahead. Please, you can start from chapter 2.
Okay. Chapter 2 and then chapter
Yeah.
10, first 10 sutras, right?
Yeah, 8 or 10, whatever I hit.
Okay.
Okay.
Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankhachakrasidarinam Sahasrashirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Shrimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha अथ साधनपादः तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनुकरणार्थश्च
अविद्या अस्मिता राग द्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः अविद्या क्षेत्रम् उत्तरेषां प्रसुप्त तनु विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम् अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या दृग्दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता सुखानुशयी रागः दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः ध्यानहेयाः तत्वृत्तयः क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टा अदृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायोर्भोगाः ते लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यहेतुत्वात् परिणाम ताप संस्कार दुःखै गुणवृत्तिविरोधाश्च दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः हेयं दुःखमनागतं द्रष्टृदृश्ययोः संयोगो हेयहेतुः प्रकाशाक्रियास्थितिशीलं भूतेन्द्रियात्मकं भोगापवर्गार्थं दृश्यम् विशेषाविशेषलिङ्गमात्रालिङ्गानि गुणपर्वाणि द्रष्टा दृशिमात्रः शुद्धोऽपि प्रत्ययानुपश्यः तदर्थ एव दृश्यस्य आत्मा कृतार्थं प्रतिनष्टम् अपि अनष्टम् तदन्यसाधारणत्वात् स्वस्वामिशक्त्योः स्वरूपोपलब्धिहेतुः संयोगः तस्य हेतुः अविद्या तद्भावात् संयोगाभावो हानं तदृशे कैवल्यं विवेकख्यातिः अविप्लवा हानोपायः तस्य सप्तधा प्रान्तभूमिः प्रज्ञा योगाङ्गानुष्ठानात् अशुद्धिक्षये ज्ञानदीप्तिः आविवेकख्यातेः यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम प्रत्याहार धारणा ध्यान समाधयः अष्टौ अङ्गानि अहिंसा सत्य अस्तेय ब्रह्मचर्य अपरिग्रहाः यमाः जाति देश काल समय अनवच्छिन्नाः सार्वभौमाः महाव्रतं शौच संतोष तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि नियमाः वितर्कबाधने प्रतिपक्षभावनं वितर्काः हिंसादयः कृतकारिता अनुमोदिताः लोभ क्रोध मोहपूर्वकाः मृदु मध्य अधिमात्राः दुःख अज्ञान अनन्तफलाः इति प्रतिपक्षभावनम् अहिंसा प्रतिष्ठायां तत्सन्निधौ वैरत्यागः सत्यप्रतिष्ठायां क्रियाफल आश्रयत्वम् अस्तेय प्रतिष्ठायां सर्वरत्न उपस्थानं ब्रह्मचर्य प्रतिष्ठायां वीर्यलाभः अपरिग्रहस्थैर्ये जन्म कथं था सम्बोधः शौचात् स्वाङ्गजुगुप्सा परैरसंसर्गः सत्त्वशुद्धि सौमनस्य ऐकाग्रय इन्द्रियजय आत्मदर्शन योग्यत्वानि च सन्तोषात् अनुत्तमः सुखलाभः कायेन्द्रियसिद्धि अशुद्धिक्षयात् तपसः स्वाध्यायात् इष्टदेवता संप्रयोगः समाधिसिद्धिः ईश्वरप्रणिधानात् स्थिरसुखमासनं प्रयत्नशैथिल्य अनन्तसमापत्तिभ्यां ततो द्वन्द्वानभिघातः तस्मिन् सति श्वासप्रश्वासयोः गतिविच्छेदः प्राणायामः बाह्य आभ्यन्तर स्तम्भवृत्तिः देश काल संख्याभिः परिद्रष्टो दीर्घसूक्ष्मः बाह्य आभ्यन्तर विषयाक्षेपि चतुर्थः ततः क्षीयते प्रकाशावरणं धारणासु च योग्यता मनसः स्वविषय असंप्रयोगे चित्तस्य स्वरूपानुकार इव इन्द्रियाणां प्रत्याहारः ततः परमावश्यत इन्द्रियाणाम् अथ विभूतिपादः देशबन्धः चित्तस्य धारणा तत्र प्रत्ययैकतानता ध्यानं तदेव अर्थमात्रनिर्भासं स्वरूपशून्यमिव समाधिः त्रयमेकत्र संयमः तच्चयात् प्रज्ञालोकः तस्य भूमिषु विनियोगः त्रयमन्तरङ्गं पूर्वेभ्यः तदपि बहिरङ्गं निर्बीजस्य व्युत्थाननिरोधसंस्कारयोः अभिभव प्रादुर्भावौ निरोधक्षणचित्तान्वयो निरोधपरिणामः तस्य प्रशान्तवाहिता संस्कारात् Thank you.
Thank you, Kranti. Namaste. So, let me back up a little bit. So we, in the last chapter, we ended with what is pratyahara. The last two sutras, 54 and 55. We ended with pratyahara, saying that pratyahara is the withdrawal of mind from the senses, from the indriyas. Withdrawal here meaning getting complete control of the senses, and more importantly, being in control with the vibrations in the body, because it is the vibrations that bring in the inputs from the senses. So becoming completely in control with the vibrations, and that control is going to give us more knowledge about various things. That's where we ended. So getting complete full control over the senses, with which we how we ended the last chapter. So I'm going to switch to the other presentation. So it'll be easier for us to look at the meaning as well. So in chapter 3 is going to be a continuation of chapter 2. We already saw that, correct? Meaning, in chapter 2, we saw the 5 aspects of Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, and Pratyahara. We saw 5 of them. And we call the 5 as, what did we call them? You remember?
External
Bahiranga.
Bahiranga Yoga,
Yoga.
or external yoga. External Ashtanga Yoga. So Bahiranga Yoga or external yoga. So why is it external? Because Yama and Niyama are practices, right? And pranayama is also, we are taking air from outside and exhaling into the atmosphere. So that is also external, although something internal is being done. So, sorry, asana we left out. Asana, we know all the postures are all external. Although we keep the awareness inside, but the body parts are being exercised. And in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we are only talking about alignment. We are not talking about various postures. Hundreds of postures are there. We are not talking about them. It is only about the alignment of the body. Sthira Sukham Asana. Sthiram Sukha Asana. That's the main criteria. And also, with little energy, with little effort, where we are completely established in the posture. And then comes the pranayama part. Pranayama and pratyahara are two things which are slowly transcending into the to the internal yoga. So from Bahiranga Yoga, we are coming to Antar Yoga. So, so in pranayama, there is still this component of air that we are breathing in and that we are exhaling out. So it is still considered external. Pratyahara also is controlling of the senses, slowly withdrawing and try to get control complete. So it's still all the senses are focusing outside. Your eyes, your ears, the touch, the talk, everything. The smell, everything. So now in chapter 3, we are going to look at all the internal things. So from Bahiranga Yoga, we are coming into Antarmukha Yoga. So here in the first, and then we are also going to see what happens when we have all these 8 angas of Ashtanga Yoga. When we are firmly established in all the 8, what will happen to us? So that's what we are going to see. In Sutras 1 to 3, Patanjali Muni is going to define the 3 other parts of Ashtanga Yoga that we have not seen. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So those 3 we are going to see. And then from Sutras 4 to 15, we are going to see something called the Samyama process, which is putting the 3 things together, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. The 3 things put together is called Samyama. We are going to see that. And then so here he's saying in Sutras 4 to 8, he gives more descriptions of the Samyama process and its implications. And Sutras 9 to 15, it goes on to explain the stages of Dhyana and Dharana coming together of Samyama and the nature of revelation process of intuitive knowledge. That is that prajna. How slowly that intuitive knowledge starts coming in. In Sutra 16 to 50 is where we are going to see the vibhuti, the special abilities that arise out of this practice. The siddhis, what we call as the siddhis. 16 to Sutra 16 to 50 is that we will be seeing all those 34 sutras are going to deal with the siddhis. Sutras 51 to 56 is going to provide a higher level of understanding and the final liberation. So, is this clear? This is how we are going to proceed. Okay. So I will move on to the sutra. Any questions before we move on to the sutra? Any questions? So, first sutra is going to define dharana, deshabandha chittasya dharana, deshabandha chittasya dharana. So, deshabandha meaning bound in one spot. It's all tied into one spot. What is tied into one spot? Chittasya, of the chitta, the chitta. The chitta is tied into one spot, and that is what is called as dharana. Okay? The chitta being tied into one spot is what is called as dharana. What we have to understand here, let us probably cover a couple of sutras and we can probably discuss that. So, in summary, binding in one place of the chitta is dharana. So then he goes on to define dhyana. Tatra pratyaya ekathanata dhyanam. Tatra pratyaya ekathanata dhyanam. So when in dharana you experience that oneness with what you started. You started the single pointed focus, And as you become one with it, that is what is dhyana. There with oneness in conviction is dhyana. So then he goes on to define samadhi. Tad eva arthamatra nirbhasam swarupa shunyam iva samadhi. So let's look at each word here. Tad eva arthamatra, that inner understanding alone. Inner understanding of what? Inner understanding of nirbhasam, the experience and the experience or awareness of that oneness. Okay. Swarupa shunyam eva. As if the form is void. That is as if the form is lost. That's what it means. Swarupa. Swarupa, we know it is a form. Shunyam, gone. That is the complete elimination of the form. Form here refers to the object of focus of dharana. And, and that's how dhyana evolves. When you completely forget the complete elimination of the form or the focus on the question with which you started, or the seed mantra or whatever it is. So this he calls as samadhi. So progressively it is getting subtler and subtler. That's what it is. In dharana, you have something to focus on and you're focusing on that. In dhyana, you're melting into that completely. The focus is there, but the form of that with which you started has gone, has melted away. And in samadhi, the experience comes in. That is, the complete elimination of the form is gone, goes away, and you're now experiencing the state of dhyana. So the experiencing of the inner understanding alone of what you started with. You started with something, and the experience of that is what is called as samadhi. So what we have to understand here is, in chapter 1, I think in Sutra 40 or 41, he described the state of samapati, actually. And we also saw two states of samapati, savitarka samapati and nirvitarka samapati. So he is not speaking about any of those things now, correct? He says he is only talking about some he is only talking about dharana, right? In the chapter 2, we also saw, he said at one place, the mind becomes ready for dharana. He says that once you get into the state of sabhija samadhi, although he doesn't say it in explicitly, so that's what he means. The mind becomes, you are ready for dharana, he says in one of the sutras in chapter 2. How do we understand this? We also saw sabhija samadhi. I don't know how many of you are remembering all these things. If you don't remember, please revise chapter 1. The last 10 to 12 sutras are very, very important. He explains the various stages by which you can get into nirbija samadhi. Sabhija samadhi, he says savitarka samapatti, Nirvitarka Samapatti, then Sabija Samadhi, and Nirbija Samadhi. So Sabija Samadhi, he says, it is like Nirvitarka Samapatti. So when he says Sabija Samadhi is like Nirbija Samapatti, you need to know Nirbija Samadhi, Nirbija Samapatti. And to understand Nirbija Samapatti, you need to know Savitarka Samapatti or Nirvitarka Samapatti, rather. Not Nirbija, Nirvitarka Samapatti. So unless you know and have this completely registered, it is going to be difficult for you to understand. So in that process, Savitarka Samapatti, Nirvitarka Samapatti. So in Sabija Samadhi, he says you start with Nirvitarka Samapatti, meaning it is a reflective process on Sukshma Vishaya, something similar to that, but in subtle matters. That's where that is a mantra or something that you're surrendering to the divine, those kinds of internal things. So in Sabbija Samadhi, that's where you start with the Sukshma Vishaya, and there is a seed with which you start. That is this thought which you start. So in Pratyahara also, he is saying, Pratyahara is once again Sukshma Vishaya, correct? Right? It is Sukshma Vishaya because you're looking at the vibrations inside. You're withdrawing from the senses. All these are Sukshma Vishaya. Subtle matters. So based on how the progression is happening, because dharana is coming after pratyahara, it means dharana is just not taking some gross object and focusing on that, but something internal. With me, people?
Yes.
Yes.
Others are all keeping quiet because if you don't revise, you cannot follow. You have to go and revise, read the sutras, and because in every class I cannot be explaining all the sutras that are applicable. Then we'll be only sticking in chapter 1. In chapter 1, Patanjali Muni, right after the Bhakti Yoga part, we started with Karma Yoga part, the first 10 sutras, the next 10, the first 20 sutras, and the next 10 sutras, he says, if you cannot do Karma Yoga, that is, if you cannot, focus on the Chitta Vrittis and do this Abhyasa and all that, now try Bhakti Yoga. Complete surrender to the divine, and he gives all the characteristics of Ishvara in the 10 sutras. And then from 30 to 50, he is talking about Dhyana Yoga. If both these things, Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, you cannot do, then at least now do this Dhyana Yoga. And for Dhyana Yoga, to be able to focus, he gives various things by which you can focus. He says, take anything that you want. Take any object, even looking at a lamp. So it could be external, it could be internal, all that. But now he is coming back, and there he is saying single pointed focus, which normally people will think of that as dharana. But here he is very clearly defining dharana as something, a focus that is something internal. With me, everyone? So we are moving from focus. If you have focused on something external so far, to get that focus and concentration, he says, now it is time for you to understand the focus must be shifted to something internal. So that's what he's saying as dharana here. So these three states, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So they are like moving from one to the next to the, and very with gray areas in between. The line of demarcation is very fine. The line of demarcation is very fine. And we saw in one of the sutras, maybe 41, 42, something like that. Before when he talks about this samapatti, he talks about how that the state of samapatti, that absorption, he takes this crystal and how the crystal absorbs the color that is right next to it. If it is a red color, the crystal will absorb that color. If it is blue color, it will absorb that color, right? Just like you throw a paper towel when something is spilled on the floor, the paper towel becomes that. It absorbs the entire thing. If it is a red liquid, the paper towel becomes red. If it is blue liquid, the paper towel becomes blue. Correct? So that kind of an absorption where the observer, the object, what is to be observed, and the process of observing, everything becomes one. So the experience of observe. So now take this three, the observer. When you are in dharana, the observer is observing something. Focus, single pointed focus is observing. That is dharana. Dhyana is the observer and that what you are observing are become together. In the third stage, the observer, what you are observing, and the process of observing, everything becomes one. That is that experience of observing, everything becomes one. That experience is what we call as samadhi. And from that experience also comes the intuitive knowledge from above. Is this clear? One is keeping quiet, so I'll move on. We can read this and you'll understand it probably a little better. So the concepts of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi thus explained, is thus explained. But it is important to understand them to avoid confusion created by so many different people calling it by so many different names. I mean, calling it by calling different things meditation, which means, you called dharana is called as meditation sometimes, dhyana is called as meditation sometimes, samadhi is called meditation sometimes, and even pratyahara. So this is what we have to understand. Patanjali says, adds a few wrinkles here by introducing the concept of we saw all this, samapatti, which he has not mapped to any of these three states here. The only term mapped is samadhi. So in chapter 1, 44, 46, he suggests that sabija samadhi is similar to nirvitarka samapatti, except in one respect. The object of focus is something that is internal and not external. Given the flow of ideas from the first chapter and the Ashtanga Yoga from this chapter, where dharana comes after pratyahara, it is reasonable to conclude that dharana is not just single pointed focus, but single pointed focus on something subtle. Subtle that that is internal, subtle and internal. The word deshabandha is all right. The first sutra we said deshabandha can also be understood as directed focus. It can be within the body, and desha is understood as the body, as suggested by Vyasa, or a mantra or thought within, where desha is understood only as point of focus. So when we say body, don't think of the physical body, the body of that thing that you're focusing on internally. A mantra, a thought, whatever. So dhyana is the logical continuation of dharana. Dhyana, so dhyana is the logical continuation. Dharana. Dhyana is the experience of natural inner concentration that happens almost effortlessly, and all thoughts seem to cease when one becomes I'm not able to read this one. One begins
With
with a
the
single
with
point
the
of huh?
yes, yes, please carry on.
One begins with a single point of focus in dharana. So the key difference between dharana and dhyana is that in dharana the mind is involved. The mind is involved. But in the dhyana, the mind takes a vacation by the time the mind has become quiet. So the mind has become quiet, meaning the mind has fallen silent. It is not saying anything. In that state, when inner understanding arises, the state of samadhi begins to emerge. So these are the three states: dharana, dhyana, samadhi. The other way to understand this is dharana, you have a single pointed focus on something. So that could be a question. That's how normally you can understand this. You have a question. It could be a question on anything. In fact, many of the scientific discoveries have come through this process. I mean, without the scientists knowing about it. So they have this question: how do I resolve this problem? I have this problem. Actually, one such thing is the invention of the sewing machine. So the question was, how do I have a needle? How do I thread this? 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 How do I make the thread go? And finally, he got a revelation one day in sleep that you have to make a small, tiny hole. And the sewing machine was born. So that is also a dharana, dhyana, a very, very intense focus on the question. And then the question itself kind of goes away. You kind of, the question is so intense, so intense. Only the question is remaining. Nothing else is there. None of the other things are there. Only the question is there. You're fully involved in that question. So that is the state of dhyana. And then, as part of that, next comes the experience. That experience he got as the answer. This is what we see the three different states of dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Even for this has happened to many scientists, including Albert Einstein when we were doing the theory of relativity. We had all these many questions. So he will be focusing very deeply in thought, and then suddenly it will come. The answer will come.
But these are all external, isn't it?
What is external?
This kind of a question. It's still not subtle questions, but
No, if you are
something.
talking about scientific discoveries, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes, yes.
Yeah, even in scientific discoveries, if you take Albert Einstein's questions and things like that, they are all abstract.
Mm.
They are all abstract. Many of them are abstract. What happens in space and time? Both are abstract quantities, right?
Yes.
So, in effect, the process is the same. That's what I'm trying to say. The process is the same. And as we move deeper and deeper, and when you switch the questions to one of abstract things, that is what we call as that intuitive knowledge, the samadhi.
No. Mm. So in PYS, this 3 stages of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, that entire process is called meditation.
He has not said that very clearly, but yes, even pratyahara for that matter, they will say meditation, right?
Yes.
So what we are, see, this meditation is a very generic word that is used.
Mm.
Whether the person is in samadhi, whether the person is in dhyana, whether the person is dharana, whether the person is pratyahara, we don't know, correct?
We don't
With the
know.
word meditation. So he has taken the word, if you split that word meditation into these 4 states, there are no equivalent words in English.
Yes.
That's where English is defeated. That is why it is necessary to know Sanskritam. That is why when these things are translated in English, it loses the meaning.
Mm.
For everything, they will say meditation.
Focus and concentration.
Yeah. So, if you say meditation, there is no other word. So the language in Sanatana Dharma is so rich. The language, the Sanskrit language is rich. So it is defining each and one distinctly. It is defining. So no one has come up with those kinds of correct translation yet in English, as far as I know. For everything, the word meditation is used. Just because a person is closing his eyes, we call they are meditating. They may be sleeping. Right? Many times people will start with meditation and they'll doze off. Well, this has happened to me also. I'm not exempt from that. Question. Okay. Is this clear to everyone? Yeah, these are tough concepts. You have to go read. You have to ponder. You have to reflect. It is like understanding balance. How to balance, how to get that balance before you can start cycling. You have to get the balance first, right? Nobody can teach you how to get balance. You have to do it yourself. Or swimming for that matter. Or walking for that matter. How a child slowly starts learning how to walk. If you see that child begins to walk, first before it can walk, it has to get that balance. That's why when it begins to start walking, it is running. That's what will happen to you when you're standing and you come on the tips of your toes and extend your arms fully up. That balance makes you go forward. You feel like you're moving forward, so you take one step forward. This is what the child does too when it is trying to learn how to walk. So it is trying to get hold, it is beginning to understand and experience that balance. And once it experiences that balance, it starts walking beautifully. No more that loss of equilibrium while walking. Okay, everyone. Shall we move on? Okay.
Yes.
Sutra number 4. So Trayam ekatra samyah samyah samyamah. Sorry. So Trayam ekatra samyamah. So he is calling these 3 things, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, as samyama or samyama. Sometimes we say samyama. So there's a special term that is using for all 3 things put together. Is calling it as the process of samyama. Samyama is the coming together of the 3, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So where you place a question, you have a question. So initially you're focused on the question. That is the point of focus for you. And then you let go in dhyana, meaning you become one with the question. There is nothing else, just the question and you. And then the experience comes back, the answer comes back as an experience. So the answer can come back in various ways. It can happen in the sleep, or you could hear in your ears, only you, nobody else. You will feel as if you're hearing. Or suddenly somebody will appear before you and give an answer, which will suddenly they will say something, oh, and then you'll say, oh, that's what it is. And they won't even know that they are answering your question. They are making one. So that is how the divine sends an instrument. After all, we are all instruments of the divine. So an instrument is sent to give you that answer. This is how the divine answers questions. So it can come in any form. The answer can come in any form. Everyone is quiet, so I'm assuming you all have understood. So I'm moving to the next one.
Yes, sir.
Tat jayat prajna alokah. Tat jayat prajna, aloka, tat, that, jayat. Jayat is victory. Victory or overcoming or conquering something. So tat jayat means conquering that. Conquering what? By conquering the dharana and dhyana, by getting complete understanding and control and having success over this process of samyama. What is that happening? What is happening? Prajna, intuitive knowledge is happening. Intuitive knowledge is happening. Aloka, the light or emanation of. Aloka is light or emanation of. So what is meaning is the prajna, which is coming from above, that is lit up, the light or emanation of intuitive knowledge. So you can call this intuitive knowledge as light, because it is coming from above, from the divine. So it is that light. So that light is getting the darkness out of you. You had a question, right? When you're having a question, that is darkness. So when the answer comes back, it is the light. It is lighting up and giving you that experience, that answer. So this is what happens. When you get nice, full, good control, or when you're successful with this process, when you understand this process, when you do this on a regular basis, then this is how you will get that intuitive knowledge. That is how the avidya will slowly go. If we want to if you want avidya, that is there in all of us, that avidya has to go. This is how it is. I'm going to stop with the next sutra. Tasya bhumishu viniyogah. Let me go on to the so Tasya is always of this, his, hers, or I mean not hers, his, or of that bhumishu, sphere or context within, viniyoga, application or practice. So in effect is saying its application is within each sphere or context or matter. So on whatever matter you are focusing, on whatever matter your question is, on whatever subject your question is, and in samadhi you are going to get an answer in various ways, like what I told you. So that's what he's saying. So on that note, I will stop here. It's already 6:58. I don't want to go on. Just to complete it, I don't want to do this. So let's start with 3.7 next week. So 6 sutras, these are simple, small sutras, but very deep in meaning. You have to go and ponder and reflect on all these things. Otherwise, everything will go over the head. And to understand this thing, you must understand chapter 1. And chapter 1 especially, you must know how it is structured, how chapter 1 is structured. The first 20 sutras, I'm saying this again and again so that it registers. The first 20 sutras are on karma yoga. Karma yoga is letting go, having a sense of detachment, meaning doing your swadharma. Whatever you have to do on a daily basis, doing it with no expectations, with no irritation, with a sense of detachment. So those are the first 20 sutras. The next 10 sutras is on bhakti yoga. If you cannot do karma yoga, do bhakti yoga. The next 30 sutras are on Dhyana Yoga. And the last 10 sutras, out of the 30, the last 10 sutras is about the various states through which you come to the state of Samadhi. He's explaining various states to Samadhi. And in chapter 2, first he's explaining so many things, and then we saw the law. I mean, in the first initially he's explaining Kriya Yoga, and then he's explaining what is preventing us from doing the Kriya. I mean, what is the aspect of Kriya Yoga? Is to burn away all the kleshas. So he's explaining the kleshas, and then from that he's explaining the laws of karma, and then he comes to how by a step-by-step process we can get rid of all this and get to a state of samadhi through Ashtanga Yoga. And he explains the first 5 stages of Ashtanga Yoga in chapter 2. We end with Pratyahara in chapter 2. And we started with Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi in chapter 3. So you must be very clear with the structure. If you hear it today and you don't pay attention to this during the week, by the time you come next Sunday, it will all be gone. That is why I am posting the video. So you have to hear the video, you have to take notes, you have to ponder, you have to reflect. If you don't do any of those things, it will just go like vapor. Any questions?
Sir, can you tell me the difference between Samapati and Dharana? Both are almost same. Samapati is for external and Dharana is internal.
Samapati is a gross object.
Mm-hmm.
We take a gross object.
Mhm.
Could be external, or that external object we could have picturized and we are looking at it. Like you saw a beautiful scenery
Mm-hmm.
and you are focusing on the scenery. That is still samapati.
Mm.
When you focus on sukshma vishaya, that is where you move to dharana,
Mm-hmm.
a mantra, which has no form, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Which has no external form.
Okay,
Or you
sir.
may be thinking about the creation. How did the creation happen? There is nothing that you can, there is no picture or anything that you can imagine, focus on. Or you can think about energies that are flowing in the body, the vibrations. You can be focusing on, those are all internal things.
Mm.
Sukshma, they are all subtle.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now write it down. Otherwise, next week you will have the same question.
Sure, sir. I will
And
write.
read this again and again every day until it fully is digested. This is true, I'm telling this for everybody, not only you.
Sure, sir.
You have asked a question and I have given an answer, and this question probably many people had. So the answer is for everyone, and whatever I am suggesting is also for everyone.
Sure, sir.
So the first 5 states of Ashtanga Yoga are Bahiranga Yoga, and now we have seen what is Antaranga Yoga. The 3, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is Antaranga Yoga, because it is fully internal. Because Dharana is itself starting with the Sukshma Vishaya. So everything is internal. So it is all Antaranga Yoga. And as I told you earlier, the pranayama and pratyahara are 2 of the Ashtanga Yoga, which are kind of transition things, transitioning into from the physical, from Bahiranga to Antaranga. It is slowly transcending into this. How when we do the chakra dhyana, you kind of transcend from up to the Nabi, up to the Manipura chakra, you can feel it. After that, we have to only visualize. If you want to apply a squeeze, you cannot physically apply a squeeze in your chest. In the Anahata chakra, it has to be a visualization. So, as well as the throat chakra, those two at least you can do. You can visualize the squeezing. When you come to the middle of the head and top of the head, you cannot even do that. So, everywhere, that's why it is gradual change to the subtle. Just like how seasons change. Now we are in the change. Season has changed, correct? From very warm weather, we are now slowly moving to cooler weather, the fall. But it's not like you turn on one switch and the next day all the leaves have turned color. It is not like that. Slowly, it is gradual. Everywhere it is gradual. And your knowledge acquisition, understanding also will be gradual. But you have to be focused. You have to do it every day. Because when you look at the changes that are happening to the colors of the leaf, the color is changing every day, little by little it is changing. So unless you go back to the sutras every day, that understanding is not going to come. Any other question? Okay, if there are no other questions, we can wind up.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, Shubha.
Namaste, Kumar.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.